In this episode, I'm talking to Jason Graystone about his 20 years of business, how he started stuff when he was just 14, and what he's learned along the way about how to not just build a job for yourself, but actually have freedom in your business and the things that you need to do in order to get there. Hey, Jason, thanks for coming in. Before we get into things, are you all right just to give us a bit of a background on yourself, your business, where you feel you are on your bootstrapped business journey? And
Yeah, so Jason Graystone, I'm an investor primarily. So I invest in angel investment startups. I also invest in the stock market. So I'm an investor throughout all different asset classes and businesses and all sorts. And along that journey, I've built or bought into or created multiple businesses, from service sector to agencies to digital educational products and services. And it's been a ride. And I've lost my hair once and gone to Turkey and had it put back on.
I could have helped you out with that. Actually, I've got a business in Turkey.
Yeah, it's not an easy one, but I think if you love the game, you're in for the long run, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So where did it start then? How did you end up getting into that? What did you do before you started your first business?
Yeah. Before I started my first business, to be honest, I had one job, and then that job led to me running that business. Yeah. And then I outgrew the business, so I wanted to just naturally pull my own strings. But from a young age, like when I was 13, I was washing cars on the estate and getting my friends to buy into that. It's a good idea that you should wash the cars and I shouldn't wash the cars. I should collect the money.
I should watch you wash the cars.
Wash you wash the cars, and I'll pay you a cut of that. And basically that was to save for this BMX that I wanted, this Mongoose Sniper BMX for my 14th birthday. And my parents said, I'll give you half if you can raise half. So I started this car wash, and actually that car wash gave me a real taste for not so much making money, but how you could actually do more things that you enjoy. And if you use the money the right way to bootstrap, I was literally like paying other people to delegate things that I didn't want to do.
Yeah.
But close friends, people I knew I could pay quite cheap. And still give them a good deal and get the thing that I wanted, but maybe it took a little bit longer, but it was easier, and it allowed me to think about what other strings I could pull in that. And then that was a big turning point for me, really. I took that knowledge into the workforce, and I decided that I had to wash the car first. Here's what I learned. I basically had to wash this car for Lynn, and I was like so finicky about like using a squeegee on the window, like a USP. I created a USP doing these car washes, and it all had to be my way. Like, this is how we do it. So I spent like 2-3 weeks just teaching my friends, you have to do this with the window, you have to do this with the rims, and you have to do this. And it was like I had to do it first, and then I could teach it, and then I could, and then I wasn't going to get the wool pulled over my eyes. And I took that into the world of business. It was like I needed to learn how to do something as tight, as budget friendly as possible, and then I wouldn't have the wool pulled over my eyes. I wouldn't get ripped off, and I knew a little bit about a lot, and it allowed me to really go, right, I know how that works. I know how that works. I know how this all works together. I just need to find the right people to just do enough. I don't want experts. I don't want to be paying through the teeth for some big website to be created and business cards and all this kind of stuff. I was like, right, let's just keep it tight. I know what we need to get it to this point, and let's keep it lean. And I've always been about lean businesses, really.
And do you still feel like that, or now, did you ever reach the stage where you sort of said, you know what, I don't want to learn this, I'm going to get somebody else to do it? Or do you think you still feel like that? Or
yeah, I think it's important to start businesses that you enjoy. So chances are you're going to enjoy most of it anyway. There's going to be things like tax and accounting. I don't really like all that sort of stuff, and I don't like certain parts of business. Dealing with people, I don't like dealing with people. I'm not really good as a boss or a leader in a business. I'm just not. So I quickly get people to fulfill those roles or fill those roles. But in terms of the types of businesses, like I love tech, I love engineering, I love creativity.
Washing cars.
Not so much anymore. In fact, I don't even like driving. In fact, I got rid of all my cars. But yeah, I strongly believe that you should delegate anything that doesn't inspire you, because someone else is going to do it better.
Yeah.
If you're inspired to do the job, you're probably going to be a good person to do it.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of companies, they try and do too many things, and 80% of the stuff is stuff they don't want to do, because that takes a long time, right? And then they get to spend 20% of the time doing the things they actually love, and then they fall out of love with the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's like,
You mentioned something interesting when you were talking about the car wash thing that I've often sort of thought about entrepreneurs, because the sort of the general view of an entrepreneur or a business owner is that they just love money, and like I sort of am more. Most of the people that I know that are entrepreneurs do it for freedom more than money. The money is required for the freedom, but it's not the money that sort of fires them up, if you like. They've got this thing inside them whereby, I don't know, they just want to BMX, and it seemed impossible, but they'll find a way. It won't be possible if they themselves go and just wash cars, because it will take too long. So like to have the freedom, they end up inventing ways of making money so they can keep their freedom at the same time. And would you say that sort of rings true with you and your journey?
I've found that there's two, like making money and building freedom are completely different studies. Like they are completely, you can make a lot of money. In fact, most of the people I work with make a lot of money but have no money. Like they have no freedom whatsoever. I'm currently working with like a couple of celebrities. One was in a big 90s boy band, and one was, one's a TV presenter right now. And it's the same story. They're great at earning money. They can pull partnerships and deals and bring in hundreds of thousands every year, if not millions. But they can't slow down. There's no, they're on a kind of hamster wheel. And when you get to the crux of it, it is because they're good at one but not the other, and you have to be good at both. So you have to know when to go, what is enough? How much do I need? And actually, how do I manage what I bring in from the business? And a lot of the time when you start up as an entrepreneur, there is a period of time where you just have to work and work and work and do everything. I know it's wise to say, quickly pull in someone who can do that, because that will be beneficial. But there's definitely a period of time where you have to do everything. Like you have to do everything. You might get an admin person or some kind of assistant, which is great, but you have to be able to see, like you have to be the captain. I feel like there's a period of time where you have to develop that captain role to then push it forward. And that is where you essentially build this trampoline of cash, because you can't just keep giving it away. Like I see people have launch parties for their business. I'm like, it's nothing to be celebrating, launching a business. Like bring some money in and some profit, then have a celebration, right? They go in this hole before they even get out the gate, and it's like this massive J curve that they never ever get out of, because they in 50 grand debt doing a launch party and a load of t-shirts and merch and all this. It's like, what are you doing?
Do you think that that's just the culture that we live in? Do you think that starting a business has almost become like a I don't know, like buying a Range Rover?
I definitely think it's become like this fashion thing where entrepreneur in your bio is the goal, and I'll do whatever it takes to look like I'm an entrepreneur and starting a business. But in reality, my starting of entrepreneurship was a pregnant partner, crapping our pants, just moved into a bigger place. I didn't speak to her for like months because I was in my shed, like knocking out a business. Like what? And there's no glamour to it at all. Like there was no glamour to it.
I've got a friend whose son looks like he's doing really well. And I bumped into someone the other day who said to me, "No, you know what he does? He rents this apartment in London with 6 other friends. There's 7 of them,
right? And
they get it a day each to do filming and pretend it's theirs." And they do the same thing with like a car, and they do this day where you can apparently you can like just hire a private jet on the runway for an hour to have some photos with it. It's just like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Actually, I did on April Fool's Day. I hired half of a jet, which was like a set, and we did this whole like skeet thing where I was like, I got kicked out of it, and it was just like, don't believe everything you see online.
It's crazy. I mean, like, you know, it's just like, I understand the whole, you know, fake it till you make it, but my sort of version of that is just like what you said. I'm going to have to do all the jobs.
Yeah,
I've got to do them well.
Yeah,
but you might think that this is running like a smooth machine, but actually I'm working 24/7. It's not, you know, pretend to be successful until you are.
I agree. Fake it till you make it. I like fake it till you make it in my head. It does carry some weight, but it's not pretend you're someone you're not. It's basically like, visualize what you want, speak about it as if it's going to happen, you know, and that whole law of attraction thing. It's like you talk bigger than you are, and you talk about we instead of I, and you represent the company as if it's all ready to where you want it to go. And that to me is faking it till you make it. It's not fake, but it's like you're talking a game that you want to get.
When I started Iceberg, I gave myself the title of CEO.
Yeah.
But I was also everything else, and I was working out of a bedroom. But I knew I had a sheet in front of me that had all the job roles on it that we would need if we got to the place where I wanted us to go, and I would be the CEO, and there would be these other people in all these other roles. But I was all of those people.
Absolutely. When my first business, man, I was like, I remember I did the quote for this job. I was an electrical engineer, and then I posted the quote off, won the job. Job came through, get my tools out, install the job, get my laptop out, commission the job, put my suit on, do the handover. I remember getting out of my van on Oxford Street, getting into the back of my van with my overalls and coming out in a suit, and people on Oxford Street looking at me like, what is this guy? And I just switched roles. Like, that's all I was doing.
It's just normal at the time, like you say, because you've got a pregnant wife and you're trying to make some money, and if you don't close this deal, then like there's going to be a problem. So
exactly that.
Do what needs doing, right?
Yeah, you do what needs doing. That's it.
So in that period of time, from there to where you are today, what's some of the things whereby you look back and think, that was just like totally unrealistic of me to think that, I don't know, that was going to happen, or you know, where you just had to, maybe you might meet a young entrepreneur now who tells you something and you think to yourself like, it's just not going to go that way.
Yeah, that would definitely. Yeah, I think the biggest one today is like people think it's just you can blow up overnight. Like you can blow up, or you can get this instant success. And even people who you might have a perception to have blown up have still been doing that for 5-10 years in the back end. Like you just haven't seen it, and that's a danger, because I think that's causing a lot of. Kids are beating themselves up about it. People are beating them, you know, oh, perhaps I'm a failure. Perhaps I'm not good at this. Perhaps I'm not cut out for this. But I think real entrepreneurs who have it in them don't think like that, because it's going to happen. Like, that's the way they are. So they don't worry about like, oh, I'm not cut out for this.
No.
I'm not cut out for this doesn't come through your head when you need to make it work. It didn't go through my head. I didn't go, oh, maybe this isn't for me. Obviously there was times when I thought, I should probably go back on the tools. You know,
or you pivot or something.
Yeah, or you pivot, you know, but I've never sat and thought, oh, maybe this isn't for me because I'm not as big as that person. It just doesn't go through your head.
No.
You know, I think, all right, I haven't figured out the things that guy's figured out, but I will figure them out. I just need to get around those people and learn these lessons that are making me say, fuck this every day. You know?
And on that, so then do you think that like you're just born or nurtured to be that way in life, or do you think that people are going to be taught that at any stage of their life, no matter, you know, what their background is?
I think you can grow in, like, you can develop and get into self-development and get around the right people that will nurture certain opportunities and open your eyes to certain things. But I do believe that your values are set at a very young age. And for me, it was, I had this perceived lack of security. Like I didn't have a dad. Single parent mum, no electricity, bailiffs knocking on the door, council estate, you know, all these kind of things. And all I wanted was security. Like by the time I was 13, you know, I strived for security. All I wanted was just a stable. So when we found out, like, this all happened around when we found out I was going to have my son, I just felt, I've failed. I'm not in the position that I wanted to be in. I never wanted this for my son. So it just gave me a rocket up the arse, and it was like, I'm never having that. So the values drove me to just provide security. So money's a byproduct of chasing security and making sure that.
And was that? What do you think that was because, like, because you could have got security from a full-time job, but was it that you didn't have the prospects to get a full-time job that was going to supply you with the security you needed? Or
it's really so that's where I think the entrepreneurial spark from that young me exceeded any job. So I was in a job, and I was very, like, I've always had the opinion that if you're going to do something, do the best at it. Like, there's no point doing it otherwise. So I went into the job, very quickly said, right, I'm not going to stay on the tools. I'm going to move up to this and this and this and this. And by the end of like a 4-year period, they were working for me. And that wasn't enough. I wanted to push further and further because I wanted more money and more freedom and more. So that was in me, that was driving me, and I wasn't going to stop at, this is where the company's, sat, and I'll just be the director of the company. That wasn't going to happen. So it was now, okay, let's lose all that security and that job and that pay slip every month and start from a shed with nothing. But then that just gave me another wind. It was like, right, I've really got to make this work now.
And then going back to what you were saying before, then how do you get to the stage where you start to know what is enough, and how do you convert this over into freedom and happiness, and or are you just going to continually chase?
Yeah. Great. So freedom just comes from, first of all, knowing how much is enough. I think a lot of people, if they just worked out how much their ideal life costs, it doesn't mean that that's where you're going to stop, but just have a milestone where you go, I'd love to earn 10 grand a month, right? And that 10 grand a month would pay for this, this, and this, and they break it all down, and you've got a solid cost, and you know that, right? And then you go, I'll get to 10 grand a month, and then during that process, I'll figure out how I can generate that 10 grand a month from assets. And assets are the only way you're going to create freedom, because assets provide you with an income free of your mobility and your time, right? So you can generate the income from anywhere, and you can generate the income from spending less time doing it. And the less time you do it, and the more places you can do it from, the more freedom you have. That's basically freedom, and you get that from asset income. And assets in business come from systems and processes and software that can replace humans, and being lean and bootstrapped and leveraged to leverage everything so that it doesn't need your time and space. And with the world we live in today, it's more achievable than ever. Like the software and the tools that we've got accessible, you can start a business for $200 and take it to 7 figures in 2 years.
Yeah.
And that's pretty easy.
Yeah.
If you know what you're doing. But again, it goes back to bootstrapping, because you have to know. It's such a daunting thing to say, oh God, there's funnels and there's mail and there's
launch parties.
Yeah, but there's like all these things you got to learn: sales page, marketing funnels, landing and tripwire, all these kind of terminology that's banded about, and email marketing and all this kind of stuff, right? But if you actually know what that is, it's not as daunting, and you go, well, actually, ClickFunnels cost 99 quid a month, and this costs 50 quid a month, and with those two softwares alone, I can build a list and get interest and launch something, get taster, see if there's demand before I actually create something and put my hand in my pocket, and if there is, then I can take payment before I even build it. And that's the approach that you should take to business, as far as I'm concerned, and then delegate everything that you are not good at or you don't like doing.
One of the things that I see with a lot of businesses, and probably a lot of the businesses that would listen specifically to a Bootstrapped business podcast, is similar to what you're saying, that they started a business because they weren't really that well qualified for any job that had amazing prospects, but what they turned it into was a job. And I guess what you're saying is, like, just stop for a minute and realize that actually you're building an asset.
Exactly that.
Build an asset, don't make yourself a job.
Exactly that. Mate,
it's such an easy switch over when you see it, isn't it? It's like someone suddenly unveiling a map to you or something, where you suddenly think to yourself, like, shit, I've just been building a job for myself.
Most people do that, I reckon. I reckon most people, if they just stayed in a job, they'd have more money and more freedom than they would starting the business.
Yeah.
And it's because they create, I mean, your listeners must know The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber. It's all about systems. Highly recommend everyone reads that book anyway. But the way you create an asset from your business is to, like what I did in the car wash. It's basically think about the things that you are not good at or you don't enjoy doing. Prioritize the ones that you both don't enjoy doing and are not good at. Work out how much it costs to replace those and then prioritize replacing that first. Don't go out and pay everyone to do every job you hate.
Do the things you like to.
Yeah. all that. But they do that.
Yeah.
Like I've seen people do that.
Yeah, it's great that you mentioned E-Myth, actually. I forgot all about the E-Myth. And when I think back, I think that was probably my moment of realising, not that I was making a job for myself. I was always building a business, but I was building a business whereby I was probably always going to be pretty critical to it. And if I disappeared at any point, like it would slowly start falling apart.
Yeah.
And when I come back, I would be able to prop it back up again.
Yeah.
And the E-Myth back then, was probably, like you say, I think it is all of those kind of books, E-Myth, 0 to 1, Start with Why.
Good to Great, all those types of businesses.
Yeah, it's like it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because it's almost like it's your own qualifications that you do as an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
I was talking to a lady on the podcast a few weeks ago who she started her business when she was homeless and pregnant.
Right.
And it just goes to show, like what you're saying, like, you can start a business from any situation, really. Mm-hmm. You can't just make a job for yourself from any situation, but a business, you can actually start it from any kind of situation that you want, can't you?
Absolutely. Go
on. I'm interested to know how you got from there into the investment side of things, playing with the shares, like investing in companies. Like what led you to doing that?
So for this exact conversation, it was to create asset income. So It was like I create asset income from either building assets or buying assets. That's the only way you're going to get freedom income. And I knew how much I needed. So I was in a position where I was just doing the things that I love in a business, and that was it. And you said, like, don't pay people to do the things you love. It's important not to do that as well, because you're going to want to do something for the rest of your life. Like, you're never at one point going to want to sit there and do nothing, ever. Yeah. If you do, it's probably because you hate the job you're in right now, or hate the situation you're in right now. Obviously, your listeners are not that person. So it got to a point where I was like, okay, need to get my hands dirty a little bit. I had a lot of free time in my business at that point, but I was still having to deal with certain emails, certain people. So I wanted to transition to assets that just didn't require like any of my time, pretty much. So from 22 years old, I started looking at stocks. 23 years old, I started looking at big market cap stocks and going heavy into stock investing. And I would get small returns, and I got better and better, and then I went into speculation, like trading, and by the time I was like 30, I had enough income coming in just through certain leveraged skills that I was using that didn't take much time, that I could do from anywhere, that would cover my lifestyle costs at that particular point in time. And then the magic is, when you get that freedom, you almost struggle not to earn more money. Yeah, because you see loads of opportunities, and then it's like, oh yeah, I'll do that. I'll do that. So all these things, and then it's just like you have to say no to stuff. That's where you get to.
What do you think? Like, if somebody's sitting there thinking to themselves, well, that sounds good then. So I guess what I'll do is just borrow some money and play on the stock exchange.
Yeah.
Like, where does this is what I'm saying. Like, when someone comes and says that to you, you've got enough experience to go, no, it just don't work like that.
Yeah.
Why?
It doesn't work like that because you have to earn your right to risk for starters, right? So if you're struggling to pay your rent, and you've got no experience in pulling large sums of money out of a service, like a service, like another human, you've got no chance of pulling money out of a stock market and dealing with it sensibly, right? The other thing is your approach to learning that skill and making those decisions is going to be massively hindered by the poverty situation that you're in. So like there was a study done in southern India where they tested the farmers' IQ, 56 cities. And when there was a drought and the farming was low and the trade was like low, their IQ dropped by up to 30 points. That's like, so just by being in that desperation state is the thing that stops you being able to learn high complex skills like investing and decision, like high, process driven thought processes and things like trading. You've got no hope. So it's like, it's flawed. The approach is flawed. So it's much best to go out. It's much easier there's only one way to get money, and that's from another human. And there's two ways to get it. You either serve them and they give you, and it's fair exchange, or you beat them at a skill, which, you box or poker or golf or trading or whatever, right? So it's much easier to serve someone.
Or you rob them.
Or you're right. Right. But you won't have much freedom after that, right? No. You can go, the quickest way to millions, go in a bank with a gun.
Violence.
But you're not going to have freedom that way. But ultimately, like, that's where entrepreneurs come in. They have a desire to solve a problem for someone, and then making money is a byproduct of solving a problem, and then scaling that service to many. And then the money just comes.
What I love about what you was talking about is the bit, which is so crazy when you think about it, that most people don't do, which is like to work out how much money you actually need.
I know.
I mean, I know probably one person in my life that has ever done that. Aside from myself, I've done it. But I only did it probably within the last 5 years of my life. Like, how crazy is that? Like, my son even, like, he's done his GCSEs, he's about to, start his route into adulthood. What do you need? Like, because this is all gonna become very relevant for you pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Right. What life do you want to live? And then what do you need in order to do it?
Yeah.
Now, he may just go ridiculous with it, and he may say, "Oh, well, I want to fly around the world every week, and I want to do 100 holidays, and I want to do this, and I want to do that." And like, either way, you're going to need to actually say, "Well, this is what would be required." Then, there's a way to get in it. Like, you'd have to do this. I don't want to do that. All right, we rethink how much money you need. Then.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy that no one does that, right?
There's two things that kind of can be damaging to that, and it's one, people create this ideal life that they want, but it's not actually what they want. They want something that they're seeing online. Like, I sold all my cars because I just realized I didn't want. You're still stuck in the same traffic jam.
I've had similar situations.
I've had sports cars and all this, but you realize I'm in the same traffic. Like, this isn't.
I had it with houses. You want this ridiculous house, and you get it, and you just think, like, what the fuck is going on here? Things start falling
apart, and
you're paying like a gardener more money than you used to earn in a job.
And
totally. It's like, what the fuck is this all about?
Yeah. But it's because you look up, you think you want that, but actually you don't want that. I think COVID and the lockdown made people realise what enough is.
But is that because you've had it? Like, it's easy to say if you've had it, isn't it? But if you've never had it, then you're like, yeah, I still want it. And you're like, no, you don't really. It's like, no, I do.
Look, some people, some people do. But I'd just say, look, when you're doing it, just make sure it is truly something you want, and you're not looking up to.
Otherwise, you're just going to waste a lot of time getting something that you don't really
want. And you'll beat yourself up because it's harder to get more than it is to get less, right? But ultimately, having that number again goes for, like, I think what wakes people up when you talk about numbers is like retirement. It's like the average life expectancy in this country is about 77 for women and about 75 for men, and the average retirement age is 65, right? So let's just take you got 12 years. The average pension pot is about 88 grand or 87 grand in this country, right? So these are just factual numbers. So when you retire at 65, you've got to make 6 grand last, or 87 grand last 12 years, which is about £600 a month. Right. So in your glory days, when you've done 45 years in a service,
when you get to relax,
you've got to eat hot dog dinner and live in a shit, like, you've got to basically live like a peasant. And hope you die at 77. Otherwise, you become a burden.
Even though when I was younger, I never calculated how much I needed, I did think like that from a very early age, where I did think to myself, like, my parents were all very much like, go to school, get good qualifications, get a good job. And even at a young age, I was like, what's a good job? What, your job? Because that don't look like a good job to me. Like, we struggle to like buy shit. We never go on holiday. That's not a good job. What are you expecting me to do? Become a fucking brain surgeon? Like, that ain't happening. So like, how am I going to make the money that I need? And from day one, it was like,
Yeah.
I wouldn't have said that I was an entrepreneurial child or anything. I just sort of felt like, no, that's not going to be the route for me.
Yeah.
I'm going to do something else.
I think that's...
And people were like, my parents were very much like, well, you can't just say that. And I'd be like, well, I can.
I think that's what your parents said is probably terrible. You know, you should. That's the thing. When you said earlier, you need to know what you want out of life. There is a danger of kids going, do you know what? I don't know what I want in life. And then that is the thing that's like starts to give them anxiety and depression. It's like, I don't know who I am.
Yeah,
right? But
that's right. You don't need to know.
You don't need to know. You just need to navigate areas you naturally find interesting. And so with my kids, I've always tried to guide them in areas that they enjoy and then support them fully in that, hoping that they'll kind of
you'll figure it out,
find their way, and then might not like that, and then
you have a conversation with somebody, it leads to something else. And
absolutely.
But always in your mind, you're conscious of the fact of like, of course I'm aware at some point this has to lead to money.
Yeah.
I just don't know how I'm going to do it.
Yeah. yeah, exactly. But not everyone's not everyone's an entrepreneur for sure. And there are, I have thought processes because of my childhood probably where I see money making opportunities in everything pretty much, whereas most people don't do that. But you don't have to be like that. You just have to see problems and get into the habit of building the skill of what are the solutions to problems, like, and write them down. And
so last little bit of advice then, like for somebody who's listening to this, that's in the thick of, they started their own business, but they don't earn enough money to start investing in assets. What you're saying sounds fantastic to them, but they don't have the option to do that. Mm-hmm. What would you say to that person?
Listening to this podcast, if you're listening to this podcast, it's called Bootstrapped Business Wisdom. The best thing you can do is to firstly ask yourself, what are some of your achievements that you've achieved, accolades, what you have achieved. It could be you got through a divorce. It could be you got through, you passed your 25-meter badge in swimming. I don't know, but it could be anything. Bankruptcy. It could be anything, right? And then write a list of those things. And then the next column, just ask yourself what you would love or feel inspired to teach other people about in that journey. People that were behind you, people that haven't got that result. And then you start asking people, get demand and get feedback from people, your phone book, your social media, ask people polls and say, would this be valuable? What would you love to see in a service like this? If you could just overcome this problem, how would that help you? What would that be worth to you? Blah, 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 until you've got so much confidence that 1, there's a demand, 2, how much people are willing to pay for it, 3, all of the things that people go, oh, would it include this? Would it include that? How, does it include that? And you just add that into it, right? And then you create this product before you even spend a penny, and you pitch it and you say, this is a service where I'm going to help you do this, this, and this, and get you from A to B, and it's going to go on sale. Who would be interested? I'm going to take 10 people in, get 10 people in. You might not, you might break even, or you might earn a little bit of money, but then you work with those people, over-deliver for those people, and then you go again, and you get those testimonials of those 10 people, and then you sell it full force, and you go, you've got the proof there, even more confidence. I think entrepreneurs need confidence, and what they're doing, all the actions that I see them doing, is removing and stripping their confidence. Launch party, pressure on yourself to perform. A big website, I spent 10 grand. I've borrowed a loan. It's just, you're putting pressure on yourself and you're losing your confidence for launching the thing. Yeah. You don't actually need to spend any money before you're really confident to start making money. So my message would be, start lean, keep it lean, and then figure the rest out, later on when you've got some money coming in.
Love it. Brilliant. Thanks for coming in.